got breaking news on InBev and Anheuser-Busch. InBev completes its purchase of Anheuser-Busch, changes the name to Anheuser-Busch InBev, catchy name, and the new ticker ABI.
InBev cleared by U.S. antitrust officials to complete its $52 billion takeover of Anheuser-Busch, and those Bud shares pretty much unchanged right now.
From beginning to end, one has to say this was a well-orchestrated transaction. From the $65 unsolicited bid from InBev, they got it done at $70 a share. And by the way, given what's happened to the world since then, one has to also applaud, it would seem at this point, the Anheuser-Busch Board of Directors for saying 70 and you're done.
It is official. InBev has acquired Anheuser-Busch. Budweiser will no longer be trading on the New York Stock Exchange. As you might recall, this was a $70 per share bid, or $52 billion. The company has been renamed Anheuser-Busch InBev.
The date was July 14, 2008, the day Anheuser-Busch took a giant step toward becoming the best beer company in a better world. That was the day AB's board of directors accepted InBev's offer to buy the company. When shareholders approved the deal, Anheuser-Busch InBev took over as the largest brewer in the world. The 2008 merger was monumental, but it was only the latest in the company's long and winding road. A journey filled with mergers, acquisitions, and expansion. To fully understand that story, we have to go way back to the beginning. And it starts in 1366 at a brewery called Den Hoorn in Leuven, Belgium.
This was about 30 years into the 100 Years' War, which devastated much of Europe. The Den Hoorn brewery thrived in the 14th century, and by the early 18th century, master brewer Sébastien Artois bought the facility. If the name sounds familiar, there's a good reason. Artois gave his name to what is now one of the world's most famous brands, Stella Artois. To give you more perspective on that time period, it was in 1516 that Duke Willem IV introduced the purity law, which says beers can be brewed using only barley, malt, hops, and water. It's considered to be the world's first consumer protection law. In 1600, William Shakespeare published one of the most famous plays ever written, the classic Hamlet. And for the record, historians say the playwright was a big fan of ale. From the late 1700s to about the 1840s, the Industrial Revolution gave productivity an enormous lift. And one more interesting note, the world's first trademark brand was Bass Pale Ale in 1876. The other side of the Atlantic had its share of notable events. Christopher Columbus arrived to the Americas in 1492, and in 1620 the Pilgrims landed at Plymouth Rock. Records show they would have sailed farther south except for one thing: the Mayflower had run out of beer. Back in Europe, Sébastien Artois kept the brewery and his family for more than 100 years. The beer continued to flow during both World Wars. First, there was World War I, from 1914 to 1919. It was supposed to be the war to end all wars. Sadly, that was not the case, and World War II raged from 1939 to 1945. Then, in 1987, the Artois Brewery joined forces with Piedbuff Brewery to form Interbrew. And in 1991, Interbrew bought two more breweries, one in Belgium and one in Hungary. The company grew quickly in the 1990s. It purchased Bass and Whitbread in the United Kingdom, Beck's in Germany, as well as breweries in France, Italy, and the Netherlands. Interbrew went on to acquire Oriental Breweries in South Korea, Sun Interbrew in Russia and Ukraine, Bergen Beer in Romania, and Ojuisko in Croatia. Clearly, the brewer was on a fast track, but the really serious growth was still to come. The next target, the North American market. Global consolidation was changing the landscape of the beer industry, and that brought Canada's most profitable brewer into play. Labatt needed a white knight to save it from the hostile takeover in 1995, and Interbrew came to the rescue. The purchase of Labatt's portfolio also included a 22% stake in Mexico's Dos Equis brand, as well as the Rolling Rock brand. That merger nearly doubled Interbrew's annual revenues and pushed it from the 15th largest brewer to the 4th. Its operations covered the Americas, Western Europe, Eastern Europe, and Asia Pacific, with minority stakes, license agreements, and export arrangements covering 140 countries.
That's the European side of the story. For the South American perspective, we traveled to Brazil to explore the evolution of AmBev.
The story of AmBev is the story of Brazil's two largest brewers, Brahma and Antarctica. Brahma was founded in 1888 in Rio de Janeiro. Antarctica was founded by two German immigrants in 1885 in Sao Paulo. Tremendous changes were taking place in Brazil at that time. One of the more significant was the end of slavery in 1888. For nearly a century, Antarctica led all Brazilian brewers in market share, profitability, and new product introductions. Its brands include Antarctica, Bavaria, and Bohemia, among others. But by the 1990s, Brahma had become the country's #1 brewer, and Brahma was the most popular beer in Brazil. Eventually, the two brewers developed a strong urge to merge. So in 1999, they joined forces and became known as AmBev. Together, they owned more than 65% of Brazil's beer market and had significant positions in Argentina, Uruguay, Bolivia, and other Latin American countries. But as you know by now, the mergers were not over. AmBev made it known it was open to new opportunities.
And this is when Interbrew returns to our story. By 2004, Interbrew was the world's third largest brewer, and AmBev was the fifth. And given the trend towards global consolidation,
the two companies saw an opportunity. They decided they would team up, and as a result of that merger, they became the largest brewer in the world.
the newly combined company was called InBev, and it owned a 14% share of the global beer market.
4 years later, InBev made a game-changing decision and joined forces with Anheuser-Busch, the most recognized name in the beer industry. Once the deal was done, the company was officially known as Anheuser-Busch InBev. That deal created a global powerhouse and catapulted the company to the top as the largest brewer in the world. It also becomes the 5th largest consumer products company in the world. Anheuser-Busch InBev now has operations in 23 countries with 6 operational zones: North America, Latin America North, Latin America South, Western Europe, Central and Eastern Europe, and Asia Pacific. From 1366 to 2010, mergers and consolidations transformed the beer industry. From its origins in Belgium to operations around the world, Anheuser-Busch InBev believes in its dream. And with the help of its wholesaler family, the company is making that dream a reality to truly become the best beer company in a better world. Today, the focus is on people. CEO Carlos Brito firmly believes that great companies are built by great people. Those people need to be engaged. They need to maintain the highest standards of integrity. And they need to work towards something out of the ordinary. Meritocracy, informality, and candor give them the incentive they need to do their best. And as they celebrate their victories, they're already looking for their next challenge. That's the proud history of the world's largest brewer, a company built on a dream, people, culture. Together, we are truly living the dream.